Good morning. I'm Josh Holton with the WMNF News headlines. A recent sawfish sighting off the coast of Cedar Key suggests the endangered species might be rebounding. WMNF's Talia Van Sistine has the story.
The core population of sawfish exists near the Everglades and Florida Keys, and even there, among the mangrove forests where the large animals are known to be found, catching one is rare. That's why Dean Grubbs, a co-instructor for a collegiate shark field course, didn't expect he and fellow instructor Gavin Naylor would catch a 13-foot female small-toothed sawfish in June, especially when they were hundreds of miles away from Florida's southern tip. Grubbs says they set a few lines that are intended to catch a sawfish, using ladyfish as bait. But at best, he thought the sets might attract several different sharks for his students to observe and tag.
I always sort of thought of it as, well, I know this is just a waste of time, really, and a waste of bait.
Sawfish have a distinct snout that's long, flat, and edged with teeth, just like an actual saw. They belong to a group of fish called the elasmobranchs, which also include sharks, skates, and rays. Small-toothed sawfish were reasonably common along the Florida coast, Naylor says, before they were listed under the Endangered Species Act. Coastal development caused mangrove forests and thus sawfish habitat to decline. Grubbs says witnessing a sawfish so far north of the Everglades may mean that as mangroves expand north, sawfish will too.
We have stable mangroves now up in the Panhandle, which 20 years ago didn't exist there.
Historically, sawfish were viewed as trophy animals. Their signature saw-like snout would be cut off and used as a sort of souvenir. Now, though, Naylor says most of Florida's fishing community are respectful of endangered species and hold each other accountable to protect these animals. He says anglers deserve credit for the sawfish's recovery.
You don't need enforcement. It's a cultural norm to protect the environment.
Grubbs says he believes the sawfish in Cedar Key is a positive story of recovery and proof of the Endangered Species Act working. People can help with the sawfish recovery effort by reporting any sawfish sightings or catches to FWC's Sawfish Hotline. If a sawfish is caught, Grubbs says the fishing line should be cut as close to the hook as possible without harming the animal's rostrum and then released. For WMNF News, I'm Talia Van Sistine.
Last week, Democrats from Manatee and Sarasota counties joined a forum on immigration reform with the Longboat Key Democratic Club to look for solutions to addressing one of the most contentious issues in state and national politics. Attorney Emily Brown said around 11 million undocumented immigrants are facing problems ranging from deportations, labor exploitation, and family separation. But a 2018 study by Yale University estimated that number could be even as high as 22 million undocumented immigrants. Parents and grandparents of many current U.S. citizens came to the U.S. prior to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, when Brown says following certain procedures to obtain legal documentation became the norm.
So it did much more used to be that you just got on a boat, if you were from Europe in particular, you got on a boat, and if you made it here, you were in. It didn't really matter.
But she said not all immigrants had it so easy.
Now, granted, there were restrictions in some parts of the world. So, if you were Chinese and you tried to come here, you probably wouldn't be allowed in pre-1965. And so it was really only after the 1965 Act that you saw immigration become more of like a worldwide phenomenon, where it wasn't just like all Asian people are going to be kept out. We only want Europeans. So in some ways, things got easier for certain people after 1965, but for some people, it got more restrictive.
She said it would violate international law to refuse asylum to those seeking it.
To the extent that some people want to just turn those people away, that's not only morally wrong, but it also, it violates one of the fundamental principles that we have, and that is in international law, that people have the right to seek asylum if they're afraid to go back to their home country.
She said that with a Republican majority in Congress, but a Democratic majority in the Senate, it's unlikely we'll see compromise anytime soon. But she said Biden can still take action.
There's also, ways in which the president can just direct Immigration and Customs Enforcement to detain fewer people, to require alternatives to detention like ankle monitoring or phone check-in systems, which have shown to be highly effective. And there are ways in which the government could prioritize certain people for deportation and deprioritize others. So basically increasing the types and numbers of people who are going to be eligible for this prosecutorial discretion to dismiss their removal cases.
The president can also stop encouraging local law enforcement to collaborate with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. For more information, check aclufl.org. Florida's Education Board has adopted new African American history teaching standards. Teachers say the new benchmarks don't go deep enough and wanted the board to put standards on hold. Among their concerns, language in the standards that appears to suggest enslaved people benefited from slavery. The Department of Education's Paul Burns says that interpretation is not correct.
Our standards do not teach that slavery was beneficial. Our standards don't do that. Our standards are, as I stated at the outset, our standards are factual, objective standards that really teach the good, the bad, and the ugly.
The updates come in response to last year's Stop Woke Act, which placed restrictions on how aspects of race, history, and discrimination could be taught in public schools. The standards include the role African nations had in facilitating the slave trade, also included discussions about racial violence like the Ocoee Massacre, important figures in Black history, and key historical points like the Civil War and the Civil Rights Movement. It's warm and sunny in the Tampa Bay area. Highs today in the mid-90s, but there's a heat advisory in effect from 11 a.m. this morning to 7 p.m. this evening. With humidity, it may feel as hot as 110 today with the heat index. Drink plenty of fluids, stay in the air conditioning, stay out of the sun, and check up on relatives and neighbors. Overnight lows in the upper 70s. Possible rain afternoon today, but a break in the rain tomorrow.
This is The Scoop, recorded at WMNF Tampa.